Ladies and gentlemen, you are now entering the Decent Christian Talk podcast. Enjoy.
Decent Christian Talk episode number 55.
55, the same backwards as it is forwards, but not the same as it is upside down, because that would be 22.
Yeah, that would be some Illuminati stuff right there.
Don't even get me started.
Alright, hey guys, this is the best of 2017, Better Late Than Never podcast.
We're still waiting on that cruise review from Brendan, but Brendan, we know you're busy.
Yeah, he's a busy guy. He's got a rock band, he's
adopting babies.
Love you, Brendan.
Yeah, it's... Poor guy. Anyway, we are excited to talk about our best releases, favorite releases of the year. Well, this podcast, we don't really talk too much about, like, what we like and what we don't like, because ultimately...
I'm gonna talk about what I like.
Well, I mean, in general, we don't review music too much, because our general thought behind that is we want you guys to decide whether or not you like it. Because everyone's had that experience where they listened to an album years later that they didn't give a chance because they read a bad review and they never gave it a chance. And then they were like, years later they listened to it and they're like, well, why didn't I listen to that?
A classic example is one of my favorite albums from 2017 is August Burns Red. And I was listening to it with your son, Judah, and Judah no like August Burns. No.
Judah doesn't like August Burns Red.
Judah changed song.
He's really into the Veggie Tales.
Yeah, he likes sing-along songs, but heavy metal, it will take a little bit of time.
I'm not getting too much into it, but there is some albums from this year that he does like.
That's true.
So, that's not too entirely true. But let's talk about January.
January 2017, because January 2018 is this month, and Kevin Max dropped a bombshell. Listen to our last podcast.
We'll be talking about that in the best of 2018.
Yeah, indeed.
For sure.
Indeed. What do you want to start with?
Some of my favorite albums from January, I would say, obviously, Colony House, dropping Only the Lonely. That was probably one of my favorite albums of the year.
I feel like you're going to hear that a lot on this podcast.
We listen to the Fast Feeling a lot, too.
Yeah, Fast Feeling, their album Pulses, for those of you that don't know, it's kind of like a side project from Five Iron Frenzy. Kind of in the neighborhood of Lights and...
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
For the record, that's Gabe, I'm Josiah, and that's Carly from the Whole House podcast. Whole House podcast.
Whole House podcast.
Don't say it weird.
I won't. Whole House podcast.
Yeah, you can check the Whole House podcast out on the Decent Christian Talk Network. Yeah, so those are probably my two favorites from January. What about you guys?
This is always the time of the year where I look through the list that you gave me of things that were released in 2017, and I think, my goodness, how did I miss that? And so I feel like that's going to happen a lot during this year, but one of the standout things was the KJ52 album that came out in January, Jonah, which was kind of a biography of his life, which we did a podcast about with him.
Yeah, we talked with him last year about that very album. He's an interesting guy. He's been around a while. He has a podcast now where he just talks pretty honestly about him coming up in the industry and what he went through and kind of what it is now and how frustrating that is that he didn't have that when he was at the peak of his career. And there's a lot on that album about that. So it's definitely worth a listen.
Yeah, absolutely.
You kind of censor my music a good bit, since most of the music I listen to is in the car and you're controlling it, so I only have the same things.
Okay.
But you might have different takes.
Yeah, maybe. Not for January.
Not for January.
Alright, so we'll move on to February then. Let's see, we're we're looking through here. Acceptance dropped an album called Colliding by Design. Death Therapy dropped an album called The Storm Before the Calm. And I want to say there was another one, but maybe that was later on. Anyway.
I liked the Isley album, I'm Only Dreaming.
Isley was good.
Yeah.
Acceptance that was produced by Aaron Sprinkle. That was a band that I listened to in high school, and they kind of went away for a while, and they came back with this album, and as you said before, I'll say this a lot this show, this was one of my favorite albums of the year. Death Therapy, that is an album with a lot of like Nine Inch Nails feel to it, and it really, for me, it was like it was probably the rookie album of the year, like a band's first album.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, Death Therapy is like nothing you ever have heard or will ever hear. It's so unique. It's so awesome. If you get a chance to see him live, you need to see them live.
They're a two-piece live, so they're a lot like 21 Pilots. They're like the 21 Pilots of the industrial Nine Inch Nails rock kind of thing.
It's awesome.
And they even have instrumental stuff for people that might not like the screaming vocals, but I would say that they are my February album of the year. And then the one that slipped through my fingers was Relient K released an EP that month, which I didn't know about until we were looking at the list. And then Priceless, the movie, give that a shout out. That was also released in February.
I also want to say that while I'm looking this up on my phone, because I don't think it was on this list, there is an album that came out in March, so forget about it. We'll talk about it in March.
We'll talk about that in March. We're looking, shout out to the Jesus Freak Hideout. They always have a list of everything that was released year per year, and we like to use
Yes. So that's February. We'll head into March since I'm looking at that. And this album is not on this list. It's an album called, I don't think it's called anything. It's a self-titled album called From Army of Bones, which is a project that's new project by Martin Smith, who is that lead vocalist of Delirious. It's probably one of my favorite albums of the year.
That's one of our most listened to albums of the year. Actually, we're launching a new church building in a few weeks, and I just got to listen to that album like on the new sound system in an empty building, and it was awesome.
Yeah, we talked last episode with Kevin Max about a lot of like Euro rock kind of feel, and this album definitely has that. It has a lot of kind of an old Delirious feel, but more of the rock version that they tried to do with like Mesomorphos, that I think they wanted to do, but they kind of got pigeonholed into the I Could Sing of Your Love Forever.
They did both very well, though.
They did both really well, but I think they had more fun with the rock.
I enjoyed that as well. Demon Hunter also released something in March, which was very good. Demon Hunter released another album again, but if you're a fan of Demon Hunter, more of the same, but still just a little bit different. So
I didn't get to check that out too much. I need to check that out.
I honestly didn't listen to the whole thing all the way through, so I don't want to give it a complete normal review, but I heard maybe 2 or 3 songs off of it.
Young Fox released an album called Sky Beats Gold, and it's a really good rock album. They're a local band for us, so that's kind of cool. They're from the Pittsburgh area. For those of you that remember Zayo, one of the band members is in Young Fox. And I want to say that I think that might be it for March.
No, we listened to that Aaron Sprinkle album.
Yes, Aaron Sprinkle. I thought Aaron Sprinkle was in there. Real Life. That's Aaron Sprinkle is going to be on this list a good bit because
I almost bought that vinyl for you for Christmas.
Oh, man. That would have been fun.
Yeah.
Aaron Sprinkle had a really good 2017 because he produced the Acceptance album and then he put out this album the next month. And then he also was a part of another album that we'll talk about later.
Ooh, teaser. Stay tuned.
Yeah.
Yes. So do you have anybody else have anything from March?
Nope.
I don't think so.
Alright, we can move on to April. The weather's warming up here in April. One of my favorite albums of the year is from Stu G, called Beatitudes. It's definitely, by far, my favorite worship album of the year. It has a wide range of artists on it, such as Hillsong United, Michael W. Smith,
All Sons and Daughters.
All Sons and Daughters, Martin Smith is on there, Propaganda is on there.
It's really good.
Yeah, there's a lot of really good stuff. Matt Maher, Audrey Assad. It's an album that he's spent many years making. If you go back into the archives, we had him on the podcast. He actually has a documentary that he is working on releasing now that has to do with this album. And I'm excited to see that. I haven't seen it yet, but that's definitely my favorite worship album of the year. And that came out in April. What about you guys?
I'm looking at this list. I see Maddie Mullins release something, and that I didn't know. And I know that there was a lot released in that genre this year, so that kind of got lost in the shuffle for me. And the Classic Crime, who I was a big fan of back when I was in high school, but I didn't know they were still releasing music. So those are two, again, I see on this list that need a good revisiting.
They just signed with the Bad Christian label that King's Kaleidoscope is on, and Emery, of course. I think Emery's on there. At least they do the podcast anyway. Yeah, it's their label, but yeah, they're on that label now. So yeah, that's an album I really didn't get to check out either.
I'm good.
Carly's good. For April, we'll move on to May. We have a EP from Earth Groans that came out. We had them on the podcast as well.
It was heavy.
Yeah, that's one of the heaviest albums of the year, or EPs of the year. And they're from, like, South Dakota, so they don't really...
It's probably pretty cold there right now.
Oh, yeah. Another album that's really heavy was an album called Cold by the band Gideon that I got to see also this past summer for like one song, but it was a good like one song. Yeah, I mean there's a couple other albums that are noticeable. John Rubin
definitely Rubonic
came back. Rubonic, there's
up to his old tricks.
He did have a couple cuss words on there, but it's okay.
Kind of shocks some people, but I feel like this is stuff that he wrote over, how long has it been since he released an album? This is just John Rubin, and he decided, you know what, I'm going to put some of this stuff to music, because a lot of times, even though a band isn't producing music, doesn't mean that the writers are going to write. And so he just threw it together, and it was really good.
Yeah, he's a voice that I've missed hearing. And he's always had some really interesting lyrics, even though he might not be the best rapper per se. He's really good at writing
the
songs.
Truth.
All right, does anybody have anything else from May? All right, we will move on to June. There's a couple noticeable albums from here. There is a album from Hillsong United called Wonder. An album from Propaganda called Crooked, and
Grits
released something. Aha Gazelle, which is a new signing to Reach Records, released something. I would say definitely by far my favorite album from this month is Propaganda, an album called Crooked. It's probably my favorite hip-hop album of the year.
I still listen to it regularly.
Yeah, I love it.
With all due respect to Kendrick Lamar, I think this is my favorite.
This is a good perspective album, and he talked about that a lot, about how he speaks the truth on our podcast. You can find it at decentchristiantalk.com.
Yeah, he was on our show,
that was
too.
one of my. I got to sit in on that interview, and I really liked it. I tend to like things that make people uncomfortable, so I really liked that album.
It was an interesting album, and it may not line up with a lot of different people's political views, but it's a good thing to listen to, and it's a good thing to think about, because it can give you the view from all different angles of things. It really makes you think of different things. I know one of my favorite things on there was he kind of like set up a song where he's telling a story about cats, and he's just talking about cats the whole song, and you realize it's a race thing. He's talking about a black person the entire song. So I don't know, it's just, that one threw me for a loop, because I'm a dog person. I thought, like, the whole time I was listening to the song, I was like, yeah, and then at the end he was like, wait, are we still talking about cats? And I was like, man, he got me good. It was, go listen to it. It's called I Hate Cats. Listen to the whole album.
There's really a lot of good tracks. It was interesting to see him perform live in like an evangelical setting, doing a song that was like anti what the evangelical movement has been.
Yeah.
And just watching people kind of
uncomfortable
scratch their heads and are like, well, I guess he's right there.
Well, but I mean, we saw him at Creation last summer, and I remember walking out of that show, and I was following some people, and they're like, yeah, I guess I can see where he's coming from. And I was like, I just kind of had to shake my head. Like, it's easy for me to see empathy, but I like it when other people inspire empathy.
A lot of people don't ever look at things from, they go to church on Sunday, and then they that's where they get everything that they know about the world outside. And sometimes that's, even if that's something you believe in, it's always good to know what the other side of the coin looks like. So
it's always good to get a different perspective.
You think. Mm-hmm. Go back and listen to that podcast. I believe Adam Johnson was on that podcast as well.
World famous. I don't think I've talked to him since, but
well, it's been football season, so we've thrown some stones at each other back and forth. Sorry about the Ravens, bro.
Oh, yeah.
Didn't make it.
Moving on to July.
Just a listener.
There's not a whole lot of July. I guess there's a few things. Kevin Max released an EP. He did a covers EP that he did different. He covered different artists that influenced them over the years, like Larry Norman, Bob Dylan, U2. It's an okay EP. I'm generally not a fan of like covers that much, but for what it is, it's really good. Also, To Speak of Wolves released their album called Dead in the Shadow. They were also on our podcast in July or so.
That album is just a punch in the mouth. It's so, it's To Speak of Wolves, which is very, very heavy and very dark, but then they just went like so dark, and it's not an album I can listen to all the time, because I've been in those dark places and sometimes I don't need to go back, but it's also something that when I'm in that dark place I can listen to and can kind of help bring me out. So that's a really good album for mental health, and that's a very good podcast for mental health, and just all kinds of different perspectives and all kinds of different stories, just their music in general, where if you're going through something hard, they probably have a song about it, and they're so good. I can't even explain how good that album is. So even if you don't like that genre, maybe sit down and read some of their lyrics, listen to that podcast, and see where they're coming from.
Go ahead.
All right, we are going into August here.
You skipped right over Seventh Day Slumber.
Yeah, they had a good album called Found. It was good.
That's one of my parents' favorite bands, and was it I don't know if it was 2017 that we saw them live, or that might have been 2016.
16, yeah.
So I've seen them pretty regularly, and I know Well, Mom and Dad went without us one time. Was that last year?
It was last year, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, they just... I mean, I was in bed.
Yeah, it was a City Rock Fest tour, and I was getting ready to go to bed, and Mom was texting me pictures.
It was like...
on a school night.
Come on. It was... Seventh Day Slumber was there, Disciple was there, a whole bunch of different... But...
I hate to tell you that none of us are in school anymore.
I know, I just call them school nights.
My goodness.
Anyway, moving on to August, Andy Mineo and Words Played tag
Magic
teamed.
and Bird.
Yes, it was an album that I was like, I don't know about this. The first couple times I listened to,
Our
but
2-year-old really likes that song.
yes, he does. Speaking of songs that you can sing along, the Magic and Bird song, he definitely digs that album. King's Kaleidoscope, The Beauty Between. That's definitely
that's a good album.
Really good. Like, I think they called it a mixtape, but it's definitely an infusion of worship and hip hop. Probably better than I've ever heard. And it's got all kinds of guys like Propaganda. The guy from Citizens on there?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, there's
somebody else on there, but it took us a while to figure out who it was.
Anyway, there's a lot of really cool people on there. If you check that out, there's Derek Minor, Braille, Belief, a lot of really good other artists on there. But other than that, I don't know. You guys want to talk about the Third Day album, any?
I sure don't.
Okay.
Andy Mineo didn't, in Words Played, it didn't do it for me. I'm not necessarily a hip-hop guy, and I've been a pretty big Andy Mineo fan, but looking forward to his next project, for sure.
All right, we're moving into the fall, September. John Mark McMillan released Mercury and Lightning, which is probably my favorite John Mark McMillan album, but that's not really saying that much.
I really like this one.
Yeah, it was good.
That's another thing we played the other day in the empty church building.
And that's not me dissing John Mark McMillan. It's just not my cup of tea always. Stave Saker, Blast from the Past, MCM XCV. Which those are Roman numerals, by the way.
For a number.
I believe that's 1995.
Go for it.
If anyone is a math major, I'm sorry if I butchered that. But Stave Saker, they've been around a long time, since the early 90s. And that's did you listen to that album?
No, I did not. I wish I did. It is something that's on my list. I listened to the Derek Minor album that came out that same day.
I have a feeling that's Stave Saker is one of those that you played in the car, and I was like, what is this?
Probably.
I'm pretty sure.
That would be pretty accurate. Another album that I wish I would have listened to more is the new Spoken album that came out in September.
Really good.
I've heard like the single that came off of that, but
their best in a while. So, I mean, I don't mean that in a bad way. They've been putting out good music for years, but it's one of their best albums.
Another one that I wish I'd checked out more is Cool Hand Luke. They have a new album coming out in September. Gaither Vocal Band even released an album in September. They've literally been around forever.
It's a revolving door. Who's had more band members? The
Audio Adrenaline or the Gaither Vocal
Newsboys? Sanctus Real?
Hey, the Bill Gaither's still in there, so
yeah,
it's all good. I think Mark Lowry still in there?
No, I actually just looked him up pretty recently. He's moved on. He moved back and then he moved on. Still living off Mary Did You Know?
Oh man. Okay. A couple.
The Lecrae album that month.
Okay.
I listened to that a lot.
Yeah, I didn't even see that. Yeah, Lecrae released All Things Work Together. A lot of people didn't buy the album because he made them mad, but that's their loss because it was a good album.
It was.
Yeah.
And we'll talk more about a guy that actually outsold him later on.
Yes, and I'm very excited about him.
Okay. And just a couple other people. There was a album from Crutch? Matt Marr, a live album from Thousand Foot Crutch, an album from Matt and Toby, who's from Emory. We'll move on to October. I'm probably just gonna let you talk for this month because
this is my birthday month, and it did not disappoint.
Before you go on, I will just say that my favorite album from this month is an album called Worthy from Beautiful Eulogy.
I knew you were going to say that because I've listened to that. That's on my regular playlist. August Burns Red released something in October, and if you've ever listened to this podcast before, you know that they're one of my favorites, and when this podcast is released, I'll probably have already gone to that concert, but I'm going to that very soon. And hopefully, I still have a voice and eardrums. I need to get myself well equipped, and my mom is going to that with me. So if you find us there, say hi. Right after that, NF, actually same day, NF dropped the album of the year.
Oh, wow.
With Perception.
Highest selling hip hop album in
the month of October, and maybe even, is it the whole year?
Whole year.
Wow. I didn't know that. I knew
Well, I mean, for Christian music, Kendrick Lamar is the highest selling.
Oh, who's that? Didn't he play for the
No.
Oklahoma City Thunder?
Anyway,
but Phantom Anthem and NF right there on October 6th. So October 6th is your day of the year. So congratulations, and go listen to NF. It's N as in November, in October, and F is in fancy.
His name's Nate. So
Nate, yeah.
Okay, I'm not done with October.
Oh, we're not done.
We're not
okay.
done. Go for it. Carly.
Hillsong Worship put out a Christmas album, a loosely Christmas album, October, called The Peace Project, and there is a song on that album called Seasons that destroyed me, like, all through the Christmas season, and I love it, and you should go listen to it. It's beautiful. If it's cold where you're at now, and it's very cold here, that song takes on, like, a whole new meaning.
Young Oceans, they released their album. They were on our podcast. Red released Gone.
Red?
Another band that was on our podcast. And KB released Today We Rebel. No, we're not going to talk about that.
So let's get this straight. August Burns Red, NF, Beautiful Eulogy, KB, Red, and who else did you say? Young Oceans?
Yes.
October is your month of the year, right there. Gone is Red's best album in a while, and Perception is NF's. He outdoes himself every time. It's pretty incredible. And then right in the middle, I didn't
know you were such an NF fan.
He's the man. If you've never listened to NF, listen to NF.
I mean, we listen to it all the time.
And then there's KB, poor KB, who just released a great album 2 weeks after NF. So he's on my playlist as well, but I'm not going to lie, I've leaned a little bit towards NF on my rotation a little bit in the hip-hop side of things. I'm not a hip-hop guy. It's just...
I think KJ52 listens to NF and is like, oh my gosh, why could I not be? I could have done that.
I think he has done that.
He just needed to be angrier.
I think he has done that in the past, and...
I mean, he wasn't around... He was around when it was kind of like hip-hop and Christian music was not what it is now. I'm saying if he was around now, if he was...
a young KJ, like a KJ 25.
5'2" is not his age.
You sure?
It might be now, I don't know.
Love you, KJ.
Sorry, KJ.
Call me.
Yeah, so we'll move on to November. This is kind of when music kind of starts winding down for the year. because everybody is getting ready for Christmas music. I know Skillet, they kind of they re-released their album with new songs on it. Phineas released an album.
I know, and it's good.
Derek Minor released another album.
It's good, but not Derek Minor's best. I'm looking forward to his next album.
I need to check out both, because didn't he release 2 albums? Or at least an EP and an album? I need to check out both of those.
But it's really good.
Does anyone want to talk about the Cutlass album from November?
Alpha versus Omega, Wrestle Kingdom 12.
I don't think that's what it was about.
Phineas is on my regular playlist right along with Red and August Burns Red. I named that playlist Red August Burns because, August Burns Red, August Burns Red, and Phineas, who is holding their own right up with those 2 great albums. And NF is also the album of November as well.
Did you see any in November that you...
Nope.
Okay, so December, again, there's not a whole lot of music coming out this time of year. Project 86, Sheep Among Wolves, for those that were a part of the Pledge Music campaign from over a year ago, they finally released their album, and it is incredible. It is, they never disappoint.
Not at all. I have not got to listen to that yet, and it's on my list.
Yeah, so that's pretty much it for the year.
August Burns Red released their classic. They release a Christmas song every year, so that's always good. And so 2018, what are we looking forward to?
Well,
so wait, I want to say something that was new, like around November, December. I don't know exactly when. If you've ever heard of Sleeping at Last, which I've always been a big fan. We used their music for our wedding. He started a podcast later last year where he breaks down some of his songs, and he started a series about the Enneagram. If anyone's heard of the Enneagram, it's a personality typology, but he's writing a song for each personality type in the Enneagram, and I've been really loving those, and they're continuing now in 2018, but that's something you should check out. It's a podcast called the Sleeping at Last podcast.
So there's a lot of, I don't know if some of you might be offended by this, but there's some non-Christian, secular albums that I liked.
What?
Too.
Well, tell me about them.
Well,
I don't listen to that stuff.
Okay. So,
Let's do it.
U2 released an album that I listened to that album with Brendan on the way to Nashville. That was quite an experience. But it was called Songs of Experience. Or is it Songs of Innocence? Songs of Innocence.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Songs of Experience was before.
Yes. Anyway, it's a good album. The Killers put out a great album.
Yes.
Of course, there's a couple other ones that are leaving my mind right now.
Was Linkin Park this year?
That
was either this year or late last year. I listened to that pretty regularly.
Chester passed away this year.
Yeah, but I knew it wasn't too long after he released some of that music. So I listened to that pretty often.
Yeah, and just kind of looking at some of the songs that I've listened to for the year, I don't want to miss anything.
I'm sure we've missed a lot, and if we missed your favorite release of 2017, let us know. You can find us on Decent Christian Talk, DC Talk Act 2, Instagram,
yes.
Snapchat.
Foster the People, Coldplay did an EP, the Foo Fighters released a good album.
You should tell. Will you talk about that Foo Fighters album? Or that specific song?
Are you talking about Run?
Yes.
That's one of Judah's favorite songs.
It is,
of the year.
But I want them to know what you think about that song.
Oh. Well, I have this general feeling about the Newsboys, and I don't know why, but when I listen to that song, I'm like, this is what the Newsboys could be.
Interesting.
Like I can hear Michael Tate singing that song, especially like on the chorus.
I have not listened to that song.
You should listen to it.
Okay.
It makes sense.
Anyway, yeah. So yeah, we like you mentioned there a couple other new music stories that happened in 2017. When Chester Bennington passed away, there was the Jesus Freak Cruise,
which was great. So I've heard.
I don't want to end this podcast on a terrible note, but there's something that we need to talk about. It's kind of like the elephant in the room. I didn't really tell anybody I was going to talk about this, but one of the biggest things that has kept this podcast afloat is the Creation Festival. And in late December, there was a story that came out that the founder of the festival, Harry Thomas, who's been on this podcast, was arrested for sexual abuse of at least 4 minors. And there's not a whole lot of details around it, but it looks really bad. And
that was a big story.
It's something that hit home, and it's something that I'm still kind of trying to digest, and we want to just kind of say that our hearts are with the victims first and foremost. That's the most important thing, and also with the family of Harry Thomas, who this is probably hitting them hard, especially around the holiday season. He not being around, it's almost like a death. It might be worse than a death.
The family goes deep as well, because the crew at Creation Fest is very much a family, and I know it has affected. It's affected a lot of different people. I know, just not even from the bad news perspective, but I mean, I'm not saying Harry Thomas, what he did was good, but there is a lot of good things that he did, and he taught a lot of people good things. And so when you learn something like that from a role model like that, and then you see the other side of the coin that's not good, then you start to question those things you've learned, and that can be disappointing, and it can be a kind of a soul-searching kind of thing.
Anytime a role model disappoints you, it's pretty rough, especially on this scale. It's just kind of hard. A lot of people that knew Harry is just like, really? Like, a lot of times when you see those stories and you see those people, you're like, well, I could see that. But this was just out of nowhere for a lot of people. But I don't know any details around the story, but once again, our hearts are with the victims. And
it's not easy to talk about, but that's also something we try not to shy away from any issues like that. And it's an issue in the church, not just Creation
It's a big
Festival.
issue, yeah.
And it's something that, I mean, maybe not needs to be beat to death, but it's something that needs to be talked about.
Well, it's something that awareness does need to be raised. It's one of those things where you need to be more safe than sorry. And this definitely hits hard with us, because I mean, Harry Thomas baptized our mom. I mean, this hits really close to us.
So,
he was the first person other than Nathaniel that knew that Carly and I was engaged. It's just crazy to think about, but we also are praying for him, and that he could find, I don't know, recovery, because I mean, this is definitely something that is, it's not just a surface problem.
It goes deep.
Yeah.
So, are we going to pep it back up a little bit by talking about your all-time favorite of the year album?
My all-time favorite?
Of 2017?
Of 2017?
Yeah, let's
also, I came up with another album from last year a secular album.
Actually, I missed 2. Go ahead.
Huh?
I missed 2, but go ahead.
Okay, well, something I listened the crap out of was Ryan Adams' Prisoner from February of 2017. And it's good.
And the album that and the other album that I missed was The War on Drugs.
Yes. Which, is that the one? Is that the one I got?
No.
No. I got a War on Drugs vinyl for Christmas, and it is amazing. But check them out.
So 2017, what is...
They're actually one of David Crowder's favorite bands.
Yes. He told us that kind of... That was like an off the record thing.
Well, he played them before his show, so it couldn't be that much of a secret.
That's alright. He already hates us because WVU killed Baylor, so that's alright.
Wait, what did WV do to Baylor?
They annihilated them.
Did they beat them really badly?
It was pretty ugly.
I hope Tadashi was watching.
You know, Baylor only won 1 game all year. That was a nice little...
It's pretty...
Would they play like a middle school team?
I think they were... I think they spotted them 50, and yeah, it was rough. Okay,
Our prayers are with you in the Baylor family.
Album of the year, man, that's so hard.
Not for me. NF.
I knew
All right,
that.
NF is number 1. August Burns Red would be number 2. October 6th was quite the day, but depending on what mood I'm in, I will be listening to either of those regularly, along with the Red album, which is phenomenal.
Okay, so you picked one.
I picked 3.
You're supposed to pick one.
Well, I gave you more. Because that's what we're always striving to do here at the Decent Christian Talk podcast.
Oh, you want to know what my favorite one was? It's one we didn't even mention. It's secular. It's Paramore, After Laughter. Listen to it. Constant.
You did listen to that a lot.
Yeah. It's really good.
I am going to have to say that, man, this is hard. Mute Math put out an album too.
Yep.
Like we said, we probably missed a lot of different...
There was a Linkin Park album this year too. Last year.
I would probably say that I'm going to have to say Army of Bones. It's probably my favorite album of the year.
Beat out U2?
That's
hard.
That's difficult. I don't know.
It's okay. We're here.
See, because for me,
listen to this.
It takes me a long time to really grasp how much an album means to me. And since U2 just came out last month, I'm not really... I don't know where that sits yet.
It's hard to digest. Yeah, I always try to not pick the fresh album. Cause
you just picked all albums from October. That's pretty recent.
That was 5 months ago.
Alright. Well, I'm just going to go with Army of Bones. Acceptance was also really good. Yeah. It's hard to not go with any of those.
So, moving on.
Is there anything you're looking forward to in 2018?
Well, K-Max just released a complete
masterpiece.
Rocket ship.
That's going to be hard to top. 21 Pilots is probably due to put out an album.
Remedy Drive is due next week.
Yeah, for King and Country.
Blindside is rumored.
Oh, wow.
I'm falling over my chair. Audrey Assad is releasing something soon. Emery is rumored. So, Family Force 5, still waiting on that release. But I think it's going to happen this time.
Well, this is kind of under the radar, but they actually released an EP on their website that they didn't promote at all, that I've not checked out. Family Force 5. So go check that out if you're a Family Force 5 fan. Toby Mac's going to be releasing an album this year.
Maylene and the Sons of Disaster. Sleeper nice. For some of the metal bands. PAX 217. Yeah, it's going to be a live album, but it's good to see their name on the list.
Yeah, so
I think I said Emery already.
Yeah.
So I know you like to name 2018 upcoming. Well, I don't know if you can even say upcoming artist of the year. So we've had.
Oh, are you going to make a prediction?
Yeah, are you willing to make that prediction
no,
now?
No, not yet.
You have to get the feel
I have
of
to
it.
hear their music first.
Okay, I mean, is there anything from 2017 that you think is going to roll over into 2018? Where you're like, oh, okay, they released something, I'm looking to see what they do next.
Tiger Drive.
Oh, how about that?
How about that? If you guys haven't heard of them, go check them out. They have 2 singles. They just released a single called Legend.
It's pretty good.
It's pretty good.
The video's really cool.
If you're into Stranger Things, their very first single was a song called The In-Between, and it's kind of written about that show.
Who's not into Stranger Things?
Who's not into that show? So yeah, go check them out. They're kind of if you were into Ocean Speak, it's the same lineup pretty much. Different genre though. So I'll just say Tiger Drive for now.
All right, shooting your shot.
We'll have to get them on the show.
Indeed, Tiger Drive. If you're listening, when Judo grows up, he wants to drive, and he
does like Daniel
Tiger.
He also likes drums.
So if you'd like a 2-year-old climbing all over your drums,
he'll be.
Two and a half.
He'll be 3 in a while.
3.
Yeah, he's close to 3.
All right, guys, we are going to wrap up this show. DecentChristianTalk.com. Check us out on there. You can subscribe to us using your email address. Check us out on there. We also have another podcast called The Whole House Podcast.
Check me out on The Whole House Podcast.
Yes.
Harley. 2018, I'm not going to lie, I'm excited about the Whole House Podcast.
I just recorded, the most awesome episode about your Aunt Kathleen Guire's adoption story, and I'm so pumped.
So, look for the Whole House Podcast on DecentChristianTalk.com.
When's this coming out?
Late January.
Okay.
Husbands, tell your wives.
Yes.
It is geared towards women, but wives out there listening, tell your husbands, because it's also going to be good for men to get a female perspective on some different things. So, it's kind of for everybody, geared towards women, but I'm not going to lie. I'm looking forward to it because I'm excited. I love everyone on there.
All right, so we have an Instagram page, DC Talk Podcast, Snapchat, DCT Podcast. Josiah's promised that's going to be more active.
I promised that it might be more active.
We're on Twitter, DC Talk Act 2. We have a Patreon page you guys need to check out, patreon.com/DecentChristianTalk. If you donate to us on there, just give us a pledge of $1 a month and we'll give you a shout out on the next show. We also have Facebook page, Decent Christian Talk, and the Decent Christian Talk discussion page on Facebook. You can also donate to us on the website, DecentChristianTalk.com, if you want to do a one-time pledge. That would help us out. That helps keep the machine rolling along.
Indeed. Looking on to bigger and better things in 2018.
Yes.
Starting off the year with a bang, K-Max style.
You guys have any New Year's resolutions?
No. I did, but it's already the 7th day. So.
Did you finish your push-up challenge?
Yes, I did 10,000 push-ups in 100 days.
Good job. I got up to 50 for a while, and then I don't know why I really quit.
Well, there's a new 100 days ahead of us.
Well, I want to do a whole 30 this year.
A whole 30?
Crazy, but
which you'll probably hear about on the Whole House Podcast.
All right, guys, make sure you check out that show and keep on checking out this show. Share it with a friend if you like it. And give us a nice review on iTunes and the Whole House Podcast, too. I'm sure they would also like to appreciate that.
We would love that.
Hey, we're on SoundCloud, too. That still exists. Hey, we'll check you out next time.
Don't forget to tip your waiters and waitresses. Thanks.
Don't forget to tip your waiters and waitresses. Thanks.